Welcome to Building Better Relationships with Chuck and Barb Lewis, equipping listeners and viewers with the biblical tools to conquer the difficulties faced in this life. Chuck has practiced crisis intervention since the 1980s and has been in ministry together with his wife Barb for over 20 years. They've taken the countless lessons and the knowledge they've acquired and have put them into this life skills class to share with you. We hope this blesses you.
Well, hello, I'm Pastor Chuck Lewis, and this is my wife.
I'm Barbara.
And we're excited to be with you today. And what's the topic today?
Well, today we're going to talk about a godly woman, what it is and what it isn't.
What it is and what it isn't. And, we thought this being Mother's Day, this would be a good day to really present this and talk about this. And there's probably a lot of women listening today that maybe you're experiencing a lot of different things. Maybe it's wonderful if you're being celebrated by your kids, but sometimes mothers don't get celebrated by their kids. And it's like, boy, how do I still make a good day out of today and everything and feel good about my life in spite of what my kids are doing or not doing?
Yes.
And so, being a godly woman, we look to the Lord really
Right.
to be a godly man or a godly woman.
Right.
And boy, he really fills the gap, doesn't he?
He does. We need to do nice things for ourselves, even if no one else does. We need to
Yes.
celebrate ourselves.
Absolutely.
And God loves us and celebrates us, and we can get that from his word to reinforce what he thinks of us. And you always refer to Psalms 139
Yeah.
and to insert our name. So I think it's important to celebrate, take some time to enjoy your day and celebrate how God feels about you.
Yeah, that's a very powerful chapter. And I've read that chapter a lot in my life, over the last 50 years of ministry. It's amazing that we've been in ministry 50 years. But the Lord's taught me to insert my name through that whole chapter and read that as though God's speaking it to me. He's telling all of us that, but when you make it personal, it really, really speaks to you.
It does. And today we're going to talk about what a godly woman is and is not. And one thing I want to say right off the bat is a godly woman is not perfect.
Right.
It's not about being perfect. None of us will ever, attain perfection. If we were, we wouldn't need the Lord.
Right,
And
right.
I have a little sign in my bathroom that says a mistake a day keeps perfectionism at bay.
Yeah.
I haven't figured out how to be perfect yet.
Oh, that's good.
But a godly woman also is not a doormat. It doesn't mean that you're letting people walk all over you. A godly woman has a voice, and you need to use your voice to speak words and participate in your relationships, whether
Yes.
that be with your spouse, with your family. There's a lot of single parents out there, but you're still having relationships, and you need to participate in those relationships. So it's important not to keep your mouth shut just to keep the peace.
Right.
Because when you do not talk about what you think and feel and express your thoughts and feelings, that especially if you're in conflict, then your body absorbs it. And I heard someone say the other day that if you keep silent, keep the peace, then your body absorbs the war.
Boy.
And that's what creates sickness and disease, inflammation, resentments, a lot of emotional problems. So it's really learning to use your voice. And that's been a lifelong journey for me, because I didn't feel like I had a voice as a kid, wasn't encouraged to share my feelings or anything. So when you and I got married, that you really had to encourage me to do that, and I had to learn that you were a safe place for me to use my voice. You could usually hear it when I needed to talk.
Yeah, and I had to learn how to be a safe person for
Mhm.
you. I wasn't a safe person for me
Hmm.
because I didn't have safe people around me. So my family system that I grew
Yeah.
up in was to keep quiet,
Yeah.
be there and not say anything, just kind of
Hmm.
take in all the dysfunction that was happening and don't say
Hmm.
a word.
So for you, learning to have a voice was a journey too.
Right.
See, it's hard for me to imagine you that way because
Well, it is now, but
as long as I've known you,
yeah.
words are your life. You are very good at saying what you think and feel about things. But you said you taught yourself to do that.
Yeah, and I started incorporating other functional families, not perfect families, because like you said, there's no perfect people, but functional families that had a system that really worked. They really talked about their feelings,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned from them and started incorporating that in my life.
Oh, okay.
And I learned that our bodies are a tank, and our mouth is the release valve. And if we stuff all this toxic waste in our tank, then that comes out through all kind of different ways: sicknesses, toxicity to other people,
That's right.
bad attitudes. Just really not feeling very good about yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
you can ask somebody, boy, this is a nice day that we're having, and they can say, "What's good about it?" I
And
mean,
you've experienced that too.
yeah, I mean, because it's like if there's so much toxicity inside, that's going to come out.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Out of the abundance of the heart,
Right,
the mouth speaks.
right.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
what do you feel like um, when you thought about becoming a godly woman before you became one? What kind of thoughts did you have about that? Did you think that was even possible, or
Hmm.
how did you get to that point?
I think it was being in the Word, um, reading the fruits of the Spirit and the gifts of the Spirit, and seeing that what the result is when the Holy Spirit lives in us. It produces the fruits of the Spirit: love,
Mhm.
joy, peace, kindness. And you'll hear me talk about kindness a lot because kindness is very important to me. But also uh, gentleness and self-control. And love and self-control are the bookends
Mhm.
of the fruits of the Spirit. So sometimes we need to exercise self-control in
Right,
order to behave in a loving manner.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So today we're going to talk about Proverbs 31. Proverbs 31 is a book or the whole book of Proverbs is a book of wisdom.
Hmm.
And there's 31 chapters, so you can read one for every day of the month, which I highly recommend. If you want to be a wise person, then read Psalms 31. And I want to say that what we're saying today, these characteristics can apply to a woman, whether you're married or single. There's a lot of
Yes.
single people out there and a lot of single mothers. And all these things apply to having a relationship with your kids too. And if you're a single parent, often there is relationship with your ex-spouse. And the better that can be, the better for your kids, because kids shouldn't have to choose whether or not they love their mom or their dad. You're still their mother and father, whether you're still married to each other or divorced. And it's good for the kids to see you treat each other with respect. And don't ever badmouth each other to your children. Again, they should not ever be placed in that kind of a position.
So important.
Yeah. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a few of the verses in Proverbs 31 this week and some next week too. We're going to do this in part 1 and part 2. And this week, excuse me, I want to start with verse 10 in Proverbs 31. And you'll find out if you listen to us very often that I really love the Amplified Bible. So these verses are from the Amplified Bible. So verse 10 says, a wife of noble character. And then it describes what that is. And it says capable, intelligent, and virtuous. So a wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies, which means that she's wise and wisdom is valuable. And when you are a wise woman, you build a strong foundation for your family. And another one is verse 11, and it says, her husband trusts in her confidently and lacks nothing of value. And so somebody that her husband can trust in means that you as a woman are trustworthy. You're not looking at and admiring other men. And I really tell women, don't compare your husband to other people, because you do not know everything going on in that man. You see what you think you can see, but you don't live with that person. You don't know their strengths, weaknesses, their wounds. So a Proverbs 31 wife is faithful and committed. And it's not just until something better comes along. Excuse me, let me get a drink here. So it's not just until something or somebody better comes along. This person is your spouse for life. So in verse 12, and I really love this verse, she brings him good and not harm all the days of her life. And you can build up a man or even your son or daughter or your friend. You can build them up or tear them down with your words. In Proverbs 14:1, it says, every wise woman builds her house, but the foolish one tears it down with her own hands. And I added to that, or her own words. And we have a thing that we say a lot, and that is, say what you mean what you say, and don't say it mean.
Right.
So a way that you can build your husband up and do him good and not harm all the days of your life is talk in a kind and respectful way. And there's an acronym that we use about thinking. Think before you speak. And think represents THINK represents is what you're going to say: thoughtful, helpful, intelligent, necessary, or kind. And if it isn't any of those things, then you need to not say it.
Yeah, right.
So pause and think before you speak. And I think you're very good at that.
Well, somebody told me one time you need to keep your words sweet because you never know when you're going to need to eat them.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I've seen Chuck encounter some very rude people in customer service, and I see how good he is at controlling himself. And sometimes he'll just mirror back to them what they just said. And sometimes they're shocked at what they just said because they didn't realize
they
how bad.
said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can respond with harsh words in kind, or you can return good for evil. And what I have seen you do that has been such a good example for me is when someone is rude or disrespectful to you, you just continue to be kind and respectful. And eventually they come around. Rarely have I seen someone not respond to your kindness and your respect. And the thing is, you don't really know what's going on in other people's lives.
Right.
So sometimes the way they're treating you is just about what's going on in their life. It's not about you. And I saw you do that with a receptionist the other day. And when we walked away from her, I said nothing she did warranted the way you treated her. And because she was not kind and welcoming to Chuck, but he just continued to be kind to her. And I really saw him develop a relationship with her. And every time we walk in to that place now, you acknowledge her by name and you guys visit. And it's all because of the way you treated her when you met her.
Yeah, because toxicity causes us to think in a toxic way. So we're kind of on defense, thinking everyone's going to treat us in a bad way, so we're kind of prepared for it.
Right.
But to be nice to somebody, it's like they don't even know what to do with that. It's like, wow, how can I be toxic to a nice person?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that really applies in your family too.
Mm-hmm.
So I really encourage you to treat people with, and especially your spouse, with respect at home and especially in public before other people. So that's one thing I love about Chuck, is he never he treats me the same in public as he does at home, and that is with kindness and respect. And I never have to worry about you making a joke at my expense or putting me down in front of other people. So another really awesome verse in Proverbs 31 is verse 16, and it says, she considers a field before she buys or accepts it. And in the Amplified, it says, expanding prudently or wisely, and not courting neglect of her present duties by assuming other duties. And so a wise, godly woman has boundaries and balance in your life. So when you say yes to everything, by default, you're saying no to your marriage and to taking care of yourself. And a question that I learned from Chuck that you can ask yourself before you take something on is, would this be good for my marriage or my family if I take this on? And then you can decide, because something can be good, but not necessarily be the right thing to do or the best thing to do. When I was young and I was a single mom, I had a job doing taxes, and the church decided we would all trade services. And so they wanted to know if I would do free tax returns for everybody in the church. And that sounded like a good idea. But when I really thought about it, I thought, I'm already working. I'm already not home enough. And if I take up all my time when I am home doing tax returns for people, then my children aren't going to get any attention or what they need from me. So even though that was a good idea, an expression that you use a lot is, it wasn't a God idea.
Right. Good ideas cannot always be God ideas.
Right. And kind of the last thing I want to cover is verse 17 today, and it says, she girds herself with strength, spiritual, mental, and physical fitness for her God-given tasks, and makes her home strong and her arms strong and firm. And so the first thing it talks about is spiritual. So attending to your own spiritual fitness, your own relationship with God, is so important. That really lays the foundation for everything and how you have all your relationships. And then mental, caring for your own mental health, having boundaries, the support of friends and family, getting counseling if you need it. I always think it's important to ask for help if you need it.
Yes.
I know sometimes when I feel anxious, I will sit with that and try to identify what the thoughts are telling me and address the thoughts and feelings. And I often need to talk about it, and it helps me to talk about it with Chuck. And sometimes I'll notice that I won't even know what's going on with me, but it's as I'm talking about it that I'll figure it out. And here's a big thing that I think is important in having good mental health, and I think that's having a mentor. And I have been blessed to have good mentors occasionally in my life. About 5 years ago, my mom passed away, and we also had a tragedy in our family, and that our 18-year-old nephew was shot and killed. And so I felt very broken. I had just, I think, retired from my job, and I was exhausted. Again, I just felt very broken, and a lady at church offered to pray for me. And as I think about it, that was actually on Mother's Day in 2019. She told me that the Lord had asked her to pray for me. So she prayed for me, and she ended up meeting with me every week for a while. And She had experienced grief. She had overcome a lot of codependency. She just let me process life every week, but she gave me good, godly feedback. And so she was very helpful to me, and also taking care of your physical fitness. I remember feeling last Tuesday when I got up, I felt kind of down, and I did not want to go to the gym and exercise, but when I did, I really had to make myself do each exercise, and one by one I got through it. But I realized when I got home that I didn't feel down anymore. So a godly woman takes care of their physical, mental, and spiritual health. So we need to go today, but I want to tell you that next week we're going to talk about this again. We're going to address some some questions also for a godly woman. And that is, what do you do when your husband doesn't take the spiritual leadership or is not saved? How can you still be a godly woman in those situations? So we hope you'll tune in next week.
I'm looking forward to that, so I hope you will too. So we will see you next time. God bless you.
If you are blessed by this ministry, please subscribe, like, and share. You can also make donations at chucklewisministries.com. Join us to keep uncovering the tools to build better relationships together. Let's do this again next week.